Welcome back. My name is Theresa and I'm very much alive. I think. I don't know. Space and time are a blur to me. I have an awful, garbage, filthy mouth where sometimes, just sometimes, not all the time, but just sometimes, I tend to use the word fuck as a comma. I know it's disgusting, I should be stopped, but you're here because you're probably intrigued. If you're not into that or weird stuff in general, then this is definitely not the place for you. Feel free to X out the video here. No harm, no foul. But I'll remember our time fondly. By the way, I'm also rolling around in my chair. If you want to jump straight to the review, I will leave a time code down below. Feel free to jump ahead. Hi y'all, how are y'all doing? Awesome, great, I know, look at us having a story time. Who are we? Definitely pre-pandemic. That's for sure. Anyway, so this actually kind of sparked because I was thinking about my last Get Ready With Me and I talked like for a hot second about how I used to work for a supermarket when I was younger. I was a clerk. It wasn't a glamorous job, but I got paid minimum wage and I got to interact with all the weirdos in the neighborhood. So that's something, right? Probably not. Now, I used to live in a neighborhood that had really, really heavy mafia ties. And you would think those would be the most exciting people I dealt with at my job, but no, they were actually quite tame compared to the other weirdos that lived in that neighborhood. My favorite person I ever had to deal with in the supermarket was this older woman. When she would come in, she'd always stick out like a sore thumb. She wore a massive crucifix around her neck. I don't even think it was a necklace. I think legit it was something that was in a church and then she just put a chain around it. I was like, okay, all right, whatever. She had a shopping cart that was spray painted silver and there used to be a bag inside the shopping cart that was also spray painted silver. And it wasn't like a good job silver, it was very haphazard. So it definitely stood out. Her hair was never combed and how she dressed looked like she was an extra from an 1800s horror movie. It was a look, but who am I to judge? I look like this on the regular, so. Once a week she would come in and she would do a lap around the whole store and she would go down every aisle. But she would only buy one thing and that was cans of cat food. And it wasn't just one, it was about 20 to 30 depending on how much stock we had. And it wasn't all different kinds, it was one particular kind. I believe it was from Friskies and I think it was like some sort of chicken and liver pate special. There was one time I remember our store didn't have it and I remember one of the managers or like one of the floor managers was trying to explain like, oh well, Fancy Feast has something similar. And this woman cursed a plague on the store. She was adorable. But anyway, one day she headed to my line with, I shit you not, probably 25 cans of cat food. As she placed each can on the conveyor belt, I started kind of swiping. Anytime she would ever come to my line, she wouldn't say anything. She never talked to anybody in the store. So I was like, today's the day. I look up at her and I say, hi, so how many cats do you have? She didn't say anything. So I figured, oh, maybe she didn't hear me. Let me say it a little bit louder. So I'm scanning. Hi, how are you? How many cats do you have? Because listen, I know you're probably saying, why? Why are you interacting? I found her so fascinating. I thought she was so interesting. Every time she came in the store, I would just imagine this elaborate backstory she had. The fact that she didn't really utter a word other than one time she cursed a plague on the store. I had a lot of questions. Anyway, she doesn't say anything. And finally, she kind of like rolls her head to me in a very horror movie fashion, like, oh, to this day, it still gives me nightmares. And she just looks at me and says,
I don't have cats. I like it for the taste.
Well, I walked into that one. I immediately looked down. I opened this Pandora's box and I now have to deal with the consequences. I have no one to blame but myself. Thankfully, my trainings in the subway and just, you know, life has taught me very, very well. In uncomfortable situations, I believe this is like a superpower all New Yorkers have, where you just completely leave your body. It's like, the lights are on, but nobody's home. You're just an empty shell, and you're just somewhere far, far away. Away, away, away from whatever the fuck is going on. So in that moment, that is all I can do. I just went, and I just continued to scan the cans. As I was picking up one of the like remaining cans, she grabbed my hand. And it actually startled the shit out of me because one, I didn't expect it. And two, she had a fucking tight grip. Like it was a kung fu grip. I was like, oh my God, this is it, y'all. This is how I'm gonna go. As she's grabbing my hand, she brings her face very close to mine. She whispered, beware of the fish people. I snatched my hand back really fast and I really thought, wow, this is definitely how horror movies start. So I said the only thing I knew to say at the time. Okay, cash or credit? She looked down and she got out this like ratty little change purse. She paid me in a lot of change, which made that transaction really long. Probably the longest transaction I've ever had in my life. What I always found really funny is that since that moment, every time she would come into the store after that, she would never come back to my line. She never did. She went to everybody else's line, but she never came back to my line. She wouldn't even make eye contact with me. Because I know in the beginning I was a little like, but then after a while I was kind of like, well, now I want to fucking know about these goddamn fish people I should be aware of. And every time I really tried my best to look in her direction, she would never look at me. And it always made me wonder if she thought deep down inside that the fish people had already got to me. And maybe they did. Maybe they did. In today's video, we're going to be talking about two different products that I have for y'all. It is the Makeup by Mario some stuff and the Wayne Goss some stuff. Here's the deal. I actually recorded this video and then I had like this really bad reaction, And it had nothing to do with makeup. It's because I poked myself in the eye with a fucking eyeliner. And I'll put a little clip right here so you could kind of see what I'm talking about. I had a lot of product missing right here. And you know, I could have just left the video. I could have just did it. But I was like, fuck, man, fuck. But as I was editing it, it was so distracting. And the fact that I knew it had nothing to do with this makeup, it probably is just gonna look really funny. I'm gonna try it again the next day because fun fact about me, I have really, really sensitive eyes. So once I put eyeshadow on and I take it off, I really can't go back and put more stuff on my eyes because it'll always leak. So that's why my videos are a little bit slower at times and it takes me a little while to get reviews on for certain products because I am like one shot and I'm done, all right? Now with that said, let's start off with Makeup by Mario. I'll be very honest, when this collection was announced, my makeup dip was soft. It was very, 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 very soft. It actually retracted into my body. The packaging is super lackluster and it's like a cross between Jouer and Scott Barnes, and if they had an ugly baby, that's exactly what this shit would look like. With that said, I went to Sephora because I had to return some of that Rare Beauty stuff that was awful. And I stumbled upon this display. And I will say that in person, this display actually is a lot nicer than what it looks like online. About 10 minutes later, I had two eyeshadow palettes in my hand and the mixing medium. I don't know what happened. I'm pretty sure it was demon related, but it happened. I think out of everything in this collection, these were the things that really caught my attention. Everything else in that display kind of just was a little bit lackluster. Now, out of the three eyeshadow palettes, I only chose two, and that is the Master Mattes and the Master Metals. I chose the mattes because on October 17th, I will be 35. And listen, as the days go on in this very weird world that we're living in right now, I just find myself just getting drawn into really boring ass neutral bullshit. I feel like this is a rite of passage, okay? That's why I picked up that palette. And when it came to the shimmer palette, honestly, there wasn't really anything amazing. It was nice, but I felt like some of the colors looked a little bit too similar. And when I asked the sales associate to swatch the shimmers and the metals, there was a very clear distinction on which product looked better, in my opinion. And for me, that was the metals. The shimmers were nice, but there was something about the metals that I was like, oh, sign me the fuck up, I need to have it. Anyway, let's break it down by product. Let's talk about the Master Mattes first. So this palette retails for $48 and you get 12 shades that are inspired by human skin tones. The shades are pigmented to a degree. I think the swatches looked more promising than actually using the shadows with the brush. The pigmentation is there, but in order to get a really rich opacity, you need to build the shadows up. I found that they blended really, really nicely and they worked very well together. There was one instance where putting like the darkest shade in the crease, I found it was a little difficult to blend, and I realized that it was my own human error because every time I've used the palette since then, I've never experienced that issue. So it was definitely my fault. These shadows, they do blend nicely. There's practically no fallout, no kick up. These shadows are not powdery by any means, which actually is quite nice because I feel like the last few eyeshadow palettes that I've been playing with have been fucking Fallout City. So this has been really, really a joy to have something where I didn't need to sweep off my face. I like the formula. However, I don't necessarily know if it warrants that really high price tag. I feel like if this was like more of like a $32 palette, I'd be like, okay, I could fuck with this. I think when it gets close to 50, I'm like, is it really all that great? Like, it's nice, but like, is it really that great? And I feel that way because I know for myself that I don't necessarily like to create all matte looks. Now I know there are people that just love all mattes, and that's fine. But for me, I need a little bit of a shimmer or a multi-chrome or some sort of fucking excitement to bring some life into this dead face, okay? And I feel like with an all matte palette, I'm already thinking of like, okay, well, what can I pair this with? And for $48, I'm like, shit, that's kind of expensive for just one part of my makeup routine. I know, who am I to say this considering I literally just bought Sicily foundation? Well, fuck you, okay? No, seriously, I love you, all right? Listen, I don't know what's going on. I'm approaching 35, okay? Life is wild right now. So having an all matte palette is a little bit lost on me. I also wish that this palette had a few cool tone options. Since this is mirrored after human skin, some bitches are just cool and they need some love too. And maybe that is something that we'll see in the next round of eyeshadows. I don't know, but just something I thought about. Maybe it's just me, but I guess I was just expecting more. I feel like when you hear about Mario, it's like he's held in such a high regard. I guess I was just expecting a little bit more out of the eyeshadows. It just didn't blow my dick away. It was good, but like, not $48 good. And with that said, I think you can skip out on this. However, if the demon inside you demands this palette, don't pay for full price, wait for it to go on sale. Trust me, it's not worth it. The next palette I want to talk about is the Master Metals palette, which is this little boy right here, and we're going to put him down because as you can tell, I did not clean him out. So this palette retails for $48 and you get a whopping 5 shades inspired by the Earth's natural metals. When swatched this palette next to an all shimmer palette, the pigmentation was much more robust. Hence why I picked up this palette. Okay, so here's the deal about it. If you do not use the metal manipulator, it doesn't work great with a brush. I initially tried using it with glitter glue because I refrain from using anything with setting spray in it because often it leaves me that spicy butthole effect that I fucking can't stand. And with glitter glue and these shadows, nothing happens. Nothing happens at all. It's very fucking surreal. Then I used my finger and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. These are really nice, but again, didn't really excite my makeup dick. Then I used it with the manipulator. Holy tits, Batman, this is fucking awesome. Now the shadows on their own do not have any kick up or fallout. However, when you use the manipulator, and this is kind of where it gets a little funky because it requires a lot of trial and error, but if you use too much liquid, I find, or perhaps maybe not enough liquid, it basically clumps up, then it rains chunky bits and metal bukkake all over your face. And it's not fun to clean up at all. So definitely proceed with caution. I think what sells me on this palette too is the fact that the little tray pops out, which makes it actually really, really easy to clean and easy to use. Because as you can tell, like my palette's fucked up. You know, my palette looks like I've had it for 7 fucking years. And that's essentially because you're scraping the shadows and then adding the liquid to mix it. And while it seems like a messy process, it's actually very easy to clean. Funny story, I actually didn't filmed this eye look today, or actually my whole look, because like I mentioned, I filmed everything yesterday and I had like a really bad reaction because I poked myself in the eye. I'm mad because this is probably my favorite eye look that I have created and I didn't record it. Yeah, that makes me sad. I used about like 4 or 5 matte shades in here, and it's more of like the kind of like yellowish color ones, and then I use like the red and kind of dark brown to deepen out the outer corner. Then I use the copper and gold shade in the like inner to like 2/3 of the lid to kind of give me like this upscale candy corn. And I love it. Oh my god, I love it so much. Now what I find really interesting and also really infuriating is that this manipulator is sold separately. Had they bundled it where you get the 5 shades plus the manipulator and perhaps charge like $45 for it or something like that, I think it would actually be a way more attractive offer. So like, yes, you could buy it separately, but if they bundled them together, I feel like it would make so much more sense. Because I really feel like you definitely need this product in order to make it shine. Because I can assure you that using some setting spray with this palette, I didn't find it to have the same effect. Playing with this palette, I did it on my hand because like I said, I don't use setting spray to put on my eye. And while it did have a stronger pigmentation than say with a finger, it didn't have that molten metal effect. And you can only get that with the manipulator, which I kind of want to say masturbator so badly, but it's the manipulator. Now this guy, for $14, you essentially get this little bottle, which is about half a fluid ounce, and you get this fun little Italian ice spoon that reminds me of my childhood, so that's fun. I will say that the palette on its own is nothing really special, but when you add this component though, I actually feel like it's pretty unique now in my collection. Now how it works is very, very simple. Basically, you just shave some of the shadow into the pan, use 1 to 2 drops of the manipulator, you mix it up like you're making a shitty easy bake oven cake, and then you just take a brush and you apply it to the eye. You don't have to use any additional primer or anything like that. I feel like one of the claims for this manipulator is that it's supposed to be very long lasting and water resistant. I will say when my eye was leaking, it was not water resistant. That product fucking went away so fast. So that kind of sucks. And also, depending on your eye situation, for me, I have one eye that is a little bit droopier than the other. If I could somehow suck the fat out of this eye, it'd be amazing. But because this eye is a little fatty bastard, I have a little bit extra hanging roast beef right here. So I tend to have a small, slight transfer that goes above the crease. But when you look at me straight on, it doesn't look like that. It's when I blink or I kind of move my head a certain way that you can tell that the shadow kind of has transferred. So I will say that while it does stay into place, it also does have a slight transfer. So something to note. So like I mentioned before, if you use too much of the product, it can make the shadow a little bit clumpier, and it could apply to your lid in more of like a flaky manner where you just look like a flaky puff pastry, and nobody has time for that. So it's a lot of trial and error when using this product and using the shadows. Also, keep in mind that you are going to be destroying your palette essentially, because you have to get quite a bit of product to mix with this manipulator. And I'm still trying to figure out that healthy balance, but I think this is something that's just going to take me a very long time to like understand the science of. But I feel like on my first try, not so bad. But as you can tell, like I have like serious dents in this palette, and I'm pretty sure I'm probably gonna hit pan sooner or later. So for $48, that kind of makes me cringe a little bit because, you know, I'm using the product really, really fast as well. I'm happy to say that the manipulator didn't irritate my eyes, so if you have sensitive eyes and you were worried about trying this, I'm not experiencing any sort of eye irritation. I don't have any burning sensation. It's very, very comfortable on the lid. I found that the formula does dry down fast, but again, just be careful because like I said, it slightly transfers depending on how fat your eyelid is. And it's also very incredibly easy to clean at the end of the night. It does have a very long lasting power, which is great, and it just comes off very, very easily. You're not constantly rubbing your eyes to get the product off. I'm gonna keep reiterating, this is the first time I've ever used a product like this, but from what I understand and what I've been seeing so far in the reviews of this is that there is another product that is out on the market by a brand named Moran. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Anyway, they have something very similar to this, except at a way cheaper price point. So essentially it's like, damn, do you really need this? Probably not then, especially if there's something that already exists on the market that you can get at a cheaper price point. And that I believe is essentially the same exact thing. It's like the same ingredients list in the same order. I think the only difference for me, I find it's really convenient because it comes in a dropper form, while the other one I feel like you need to just purchase a little dropper to use. So again, it's like a personal preference thing. All right, moral of the story, do you really need this? Probably not. I think out of everything that I talked about in this line, the manipulator and the metals palette is by far the best thing. However, if the manipulator didn't exist, I would be like, no, I would think this palette's worth it. Not at that price point anyway. Well, I love what I created and I love this metal effect. I say the whole process can be a little bit time consuming depending on how you mix the products, because if you say you mix too much or too little, it could definitely waste time, especially if you only have a small amount of time to do your makeup. Also, how often are you gonna be like a mad fucking scientist mixing eyeshadows? Never mind, I forgot we're living in a pandemic where tomorrow is definitely not guaranteed, so Mad Max your fucking face up. Do whatever makes you feel good. But in all seriousness, this stuff is nice. I just don't think it's worth the price. Definitely wait for it to go on sale. Trust me. The last thing I want to talk about is these Wayne Goss products, and these are the Weightless Veil Blush Palettes. And I got them in the shade Blush Peony and Coral Rose because they look like the best options for fair skin. However, I wish I got the Vivid Azalea Blush because the highlighter in that palette is calling my fucking name. When it comes to the blush, I found that the formula is smooth, but it's not super pigmented. So say when I compare it to Cover FX, for example, Cover FX is like bam in your fucking face, instant Annabelle doll, instant Campbell Soup kit. This is more of a light wash of color, kind of similar to Chantecaille, except I feel like Chantecaille has a little bit more pigmentation. This one definitely you have to build up, but good news is that you can build it up. So you can make yourself into an Annabelle doll if you so desire. Now, what I think the standout product from this line is the highlighter.
Bitch, fuck me up.
It's fucking pretty.
I feel like an upscale alien slut.
Like, I feel classy until I burp and say fuck. Like, for a brief moment, I'm a better person. I found that both the blush and the highlighter were very, very easy to apply, and I didn't experience any sort of patchiness with either one of these products. It didn't emphasize any texture on my skin or emphasize any of the fine lines that I have been growing on my face lately due to stress, which has been really cute. Really, really cute. And I find that the longevity on these products were very, very lovely. It's funny though, because I feel like, you know, before the pandemic days, I was able to really test the longevity of a product, especially when commuting in like the hot subway. And because I don't have that, it's like I'm sitting in air conditioning all day. It's kind of funny to say like the longevity is good because of course I'm not fucking sweating, but one day I'll get to go outside. One day I'll get to do things and then we can really test these puppies out. But for the time being though, sitting in an air conditioned apartment, not talking to society, it's fucking lovely. Now, I feel like the highlighters in these palettes, they're a little bit different, each one. I definitely think the shimmer pink shade is a little bit more powdery. There has a little bit more texture to it compared to the blushing shade or the rosy shade. I never fucking remember. I never understand how to fucking tell these things apart. Basically, the pale gold shade, this boy right here, it has a different feel to it. This one definitely, like I said, has a little bit more powder, a little bit more texture to it. You can definitely blow away the excess. The gold shade definitely has more of a satin feel to it. I will say though, I am beyond impressed with the shimmer pink shade. Holy shit. I feel like in the last few years there has been a lot of like these kind of white to pink, kind of violet-y highlighters, and I feel like oftentimes a lot of them haven't really been that good. I really do like the Kaleidos one, which is in the shade Mars Melter. I think that's really pretty, but it definitely has more of like a red undertone. Kind of the same thing when it comes to like Pat McGrath. I think it's like Iridescent Pink 003. It's another one that kind of has more of like a pinky red kind of shift. What makes the Wayne Goss one very intriguing is that there is more of like a pink kind of lavender vibe to it. I don't know, it's like, it's unique to my collection. It sits so beautifully on the skin and there's no glitter in it. It's just beautiful highlight that melts perfectly and you buff it out and it just kind of gives you that just sexy, sophisticated cyborg. I fucking love it. I feel like the highlighters are perfect and I actually really like the preferred method on how to use these products. Essentially, you would just use the highlighter and then you buff the blush on top of it to kind of give it a little bit more of like that glow from within, that sexy time candle lighting that I lovingly like to refer, that takes someone that's a 2, 2 and 8. You know what I mean? Like, turn the lights off, everybody looks good. You know what I mean? And it's funny because it's not really my preferred method. Like, I never thought to do that. I've always been trained to put like bronzer and then blush and then highlighter, but it was actually kind of like nice to do something different. I really love kind of the soft effect to it. However, I will say that yes, I do put a lot of highlighter on because listen, bitch, I want to be seen from outer space, okay? So I might go ham, all right? But I just love how like the little light wash of color just brings enough life to my face where I don't look dead. So that's great. I feel like also when doing it in this method, like you have a beautiful radiance, you look more youthful. So I definitely feel like I have a nice Benjamin Button thing going on, which is awesome. I think out of all the Wayne Goss products that I have tried this year, there has been the lip products, which are fantastic. The eyeshadow palette, which was fine. It wasn't my favorite thing, but it was okay. This is by far like my favorite thing. I will say that I like the highlighters more than the blush, and I really hope in the future that the highlighters are actually sold separately because I would buy them all as long as the formula doesn't change. Once it changes, I'm out. But all jokes aside, I really do feel like these are really cool and I'm really super excited to have them in my collection. They're very, very unique. So I highly recommend checking these babies out and I look forward to more releases in the future. Wayne, please make more highlighters. Stat. Thank you. Love you, bye. Anyway, that is my quick little fun size reviews. Let me know down below how you feel about any of these products. If you love them, if you hate them, if you're gonna be skipping out, or if you're waiting for a sale, let me know because I love hearing from y'all. On that note, I wanna say thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it as always. Feel free to like, comment, hit that subscribe button, it's free, and hit that bell icon for notification of all my future posts. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Patreon. To all my patron bubbies, I love your little adorable faces. Thank you so much for keeping this disgusting, filthy, sleazy, trashy, garbage boat afloat. I couldn't do it without you. And yeah, just thank you for just being so lovely to me. I really appreciate it. If you want to know what is currently on my face, along with where to get these products, my merch, which is spooky merch because it's spooky season. Ooh. You have until November 1st to pick it up. If not, it's gone forever and ever and ever and ever. So, not to guilt trip you, but it'll be gone. If you want to listen to my podcast, Dead and Bored, and if you want to know what is also on my nails, which is the Hollow Taco Multi-Chrome Collection, again, everything will be listed in the description box below. And as always, remember to wash your hands, wear a mask, register to vote, and just be kind to each other. And I'll see you, little pumpkins, later. Bye.